and the family here say they brought the two militants with them. The militants were not hiding in the house, they'd never seen them. And then they staged a fake encounter, put the men in there in that room, and they all fired at them for 3 hours and staged this encounter. Far from being supporters of the militants, the family said their father had once been captured by them and tortured until they paid a ransom.
This torture is done by the Hizbul Mujahideen to my father. And this is done by the Indian army. Now what is the position of a Kashmiri?
You're in between both.
We are in between the both. Army come, they torture us. After that militants come, they torture us. You can see this. What the hell they are doing with my father? Hello dear, how are you?
Suddenly their father arrived home. Your ID card.
Director, Kani Care Groups.
Farooq Ahmed Khani is a businessman.
Business of Chambers and Commerce, permanent member. Income tax Indian, citizenships.
He's at pains to show us that he's a respectable citizen. He's showing us every ID card he has. He's a citizen of the Indian nation. He's saying he showed us his ID, his membership of the Chamber of Commerce, various organisations. He's an important man in this town. He just doesn't know why this has happened to him. He showed us his air ticket, his hotel receipt. He was in Jammu, in another part of the province, on the night when this happened. His family was alone. The family's story that the security forces had executed the militants, then staged the shootout, was supported by other eyewitnesses. The security forces stand by their version of events. The family think their house was chosen because it was near a barracks and surrounded by a high wall. Human rights groups say summary executions are part of the Indian government's counterinsurgency strategy. We left Srinagar for the remote villages near the line of control, the front line between Indian and Pakistani-controlled Kashmir. For years, both sides have shelled each other across the line, and Kashmiri civilians have paid the price. Now there is a ceasefire. India and Pakistan are holding high-level talks about Kashmir's future. We've been stopped. We've got to produce our cards every few hundred metres because the security cordon is so tight. This is one of the closest villages to the line of control. Before the ceasefire, this is the place that got most of the shells. They were constantly fired from across the border by Pakistani troops. The Indian security forces showed us a house that had been hit by shell fire back in August.
And you can see the remnants. You can see there's the perforations made with it.
Yeah. We're protected by a ridge here, but on the other side of the ridge, there by that mountain, is the line of control. The snow-capped mountain is in Pakistan. This was one of thousands of houses hit by shells. A shell was fired from the mountains over on the Pakistani side, came through the roof where the big hole is, hit the floor in here, and then went into this room where children were sleeping.
She's the girl who was hurt in that.
Who was hurt in that externally.
9-year-old Masrat was sleeping here with her cousins, 6-year-old Asa and 4-year-old Mason. Musfir, ask you this question. What happened to your cousins?
They were also hit. तो वो लोग बच गए या मर गए?
मर गए.
She said my cousins were also here. They were hit. They died. Outside, an Indian army patrol passed. They were watching for militants crossing from Pakistan. In the northern town of Bandipur, we called at the police station to find the latest news and found men from a mountain village that had been raided by the Indian army as they looked for militants. Why are you waiting here? What's happened? The villagers had been forced to help the army. They said 6 of them were taken captive by the army. 5 of them have been released. There's just 1 in custody and they're waiting for that 1 man. The missing man's wife and child were with them, hoping to see him alive. The police said they knew nothing about him. One of the men showed us how the army had tortured him. He said what they do is they get the men, they torture them, they tie them up, they tie their hands and they make them carry guns, and then they make them go to where the militants are and use them as human shields. The men were afraid to return home now they'd complained about the army's behaviour. The police told us to stop talking to the villagers and come inside the station. There are lots of men around the courtyard. Some of them are prisoners, some of them are collaborators. We waited for the commander. I spoke to some former militants who are now working with the police. Ali became a militant when he was 14. He said there was so much talk about this word freedom, and he said we didn't know what freedom was, but we were interested, and so he joined up. Then he said later there were so many organisations and groups, there was a lot of infighting, and militants started to kill each other or else be killed by the army in encounters, and that's when he decided to leave the militants and surrender. The government had promised him a return to normal life. Instead, he had to fight on their side. He said there's no difference between being a militant and a counterinsurgent. He said we still do things that we don't want to do, but it was a mistake to come over to this side. It was a mistake to be a militant. They were both mistakes, and now we can't leave. Then I heard some policemen and soldiers had just arrived back from a gun battle in the mountains. They brought back the body of Pervez Ahmed Reshi, a 20-year-old militant. These men come from the same village where the shootout happened yesterday. This man said he was collecting fodder for his animals when he came across the dead militants in the army. The army then accused him of tipping off the other militants, so they ran away and took him in on these grounds and beat him up, and he thinks he's got broken bones in his chest. This other man was from the place where the militants were shot, and he was taken in because the army accused him of not telling them that there were militants in the area. Yeah. So we have to stop that. And then the police commander arrived. Good morning, sir.
They are the sympathizers of militants. These militants which have killed have been hidden by this pin. He's a very dangerous man. You are seeing that he's this type of chap. He's a very dangerous man. You like militants or not? तो शो मुजाहिदन पसंद करा किन की इन? They are saying that militants are coming to them. They giving them threaten if they will not shelter them, they will not provide food them, they will throw their heads.
They'll cut their heads.
They cut their heads.
Whatever they said, it seemed they were condemned.
One time they are saying that army is beating them. The second time they are saying militants are beating them. This time they are saying that militants are very good to them, whereas army is harsh to them. That means there is some involvement. This type of statement shows there is some involvement between these people and with militancy.
This is the most awful thing about being in Kashmir. These men are just going to be left here. I don't know what's going to happen to them. They seem to have apprehended some militants. They want us to meet them.
They are the 2 militants.
Why did you join the militant group?
It was a mistake.
Oh, look, watch out, watch out.
We have not tortured them without beating them. They have cooperated with us.
Does that